Welcome to the Endurance Horse Podcast, where endurance riders from all across the globe gather, sharing their stories, goals, and progress as they train for and compete in endurance events at every level. So kick off your shoes, pull up a chair, and listen as we gather around the virtual campfire and listen to friends from across the world.
Horses. Hello.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Endurance Horse Podcast. I am your host, Christina Hike, and in today's episode, we're happy to bring to you an insightful conversation with riding coach and horse trainer Scot MacGregor. This is part 2 of Pam Reband's story, as Scot has played a pivotal role in the journey of Shiloh and Pam as they prepared for the 2024 Tevis Cup. Known for his expertise in building trust and confidence between horses and their riders, Scot has been instrumental not only with helping Pam regain her courage, but also with strengthening her bond with Shiloh, building their trust, and bringing Shiloh along as a solid horse that Pam could depend on. Listen in as we learn more about how Scot's coaching and expertise added to the story of Pam and Shiloh's preparation for one of the most difficult and longest-standing endurance rides in the world. Without further ado, I bring to you episode 67 of Endurance Horse Podcast. Hey Scot, this is Christina Hike from Endurance Horse Podcast and War Horse Endurance, and I am so glad to get to talk to you today about Pam's book, 3 Steps Up from Mediocrity.
Well, it's definitely an interesting story.
Yeah, I thought you were such a big part of her being able to get back on her horse and out of the round pen that I really wanted to add you to this interview. So, Scot, at first, could you give me some of your background with training and who you are and what you do? I know that you are active in Western dressage and that you are primarily riding walking horses. Is that true?
That's correct. When I trained horses out west, I did train other breeds, but moving back here, that was the breed I'd grown up with as my primary exposure. So I just basically stuck with that breed exclusively. And my interest went into Western dressage, basically looking for a venue that was actually hard and challenging, and yet obviously something I enjoy and have had success with. My background is I've been a professional horse trainer for just under 40 years, and I grew up with my mother as a trainer, so I've been involved with the horses my whole life. All I can remember that you asked about.
No problem. And needed some help with her horses. So could you walk us through a little bit about those first contact to come out and check her horses out?
Sure. No problem on that. We served on a horse association's board of directors together, and got to know each other through the years of meetings. We had known of each other as competitors back all the way into my 20s. I think she picked me because I was somebody that she knew but hadn't seen me in a long time, so I think she was shocked when I got out of the car and I was old.
Funny how that happens, I have cousins that I haven't really met. I've only seen on Facebook, and then I pictured them in my head as being children, and now they have children. So I know, if you stick around long enough, that's kind of how that goes. So I used to teach riding, so I have some experience with working with people who are either brand new to horses or trying to come back, and they've lost their confidence a bit. And so that is kind of the point of the title of Pam's book, in that she used to be a confident rider. She had a spill, and then that kind of made even just standing on the mountain block, thinking about getting on, a problem. How did you address that with her? The reason this is a topic is usually I don't do books on this podcast. I have a different podcast for books. But the reason I'm doing it on this podcast is we do have a larger audience on it. And we also have that common topic come up where somebody has taken a spill and they've lost their confidence, or they've had some kind of injury. It might not even have happened around horses, maybe a car accident, and they had a brain trauma, and then they lost their balance, and now they're trying to bring their body back to be able to ride. So could you touch on that confidence part a bit and why that was important to you to help Pam work through this?
Absolutely. I guess the starting point is really in knowing that I knew Pam as a top competitor. She was very successful in the show ring and kind of a powerhouse. I mean, she's a really cool lady, but she's, when she's competing, obviously she was in there trying to win and did so quite often. So that's the Pam I knew. And the Pam I met upon her returning after having a pretty severe accident. She was hiding how much the act of riding bothered her. She was incapable, essentially. So her saying that she was so scared she threw up on the, trying to mount those 3 steps up onto a horse's back is no joke. Deep, penetrating fear that was initiated through having a horse basically fall out from under her, so out of her control and then getting hurt. And so I think it built over a 2-year period where most people would hop back up and go on. I think that it was building through her lack of trust of a particular horse that is the one that ended up falling on her. The horse had done other things wrong leading up to that, so I think it was a building set of circumstances that by the time that the accident happened, the accident wasn't actually the cause of the fear. It was the trigger of the locking up of any confidence. So when I met her, she basically just hired me to get a new horse. He wasn't young. He was probably 7, I guess. But it was a new horse to her that she had not ridden, and she'd owned it for at least a year, named Shiloh. Really nice spotted saddle horse, Tennessee Walker, breeding. So beautiful, Palomino and white. So a very striking animal. He was relatively nice to ride, although he was jumpy. That wasn't going to work. So I started training the horse basically as I would normally train a horse, expose a horse to things, use repetition to teach him specific behavior, such as standing to be mounted, and that was something that Pam said was a must. Just approached it same way I would any horse, not really understanding at that time what was wrong. And by the time I figured out how bad the problem was, I was a few months into the training of the horse, so she'd kind of left me alone to just prep the horse more or less any way I saw fit, which that's what I do for a living, so I wasn't doing anything special. I was just getting the horse ready to ride. When it came time for her to ride, she had, through another friend named Sue, gotten the confidence to get on basically another horse that she owned. There was a packer. He was quite happy and willing to walk around in a round pen while she was trembling and trying to build up confidence to do anything. So she got herself through that with her friend while I was actually training the other horse, and got to the point where she could, ride around a little bit. In order to show her how well her horse was doing, we'd pretty much gotten 4 months in at this point. We started riding at a local horse trail where she was on the really super calm, do nothing wrong packer, and I was on the spry, what's around the next corner horse that she was supposed to be riding. And I was able to show her on many different occasions that this horse just made good choices. Things went along through the summer. We ended up going on some pretty hard trails, to be honest. So her confidence built on the other horse, Charlie, and she watched the horse that I was on pretty intently, to see what he was doing, and finally got the courage one day when we were up at Big South Fork to get up on him and ride the second half of a ride, which went well. Didn't go extremely well, but it went well enough that there wasn't any problems. I had kind of figured out how bad she was afraid by this time, probably knew for about 2 months into it. So I was very careful. I was really careful. She finally rode her horse at home during this time period, and I don't think I've ever been so nervous in my entire life, watching her and seeing that the horse was willing to make the good choices that he needed to make, and that she was getting back some of her ability to, just ride. I know that she says in the book, because I've read the book obviously myself, I know that she says in the book how afraid she truly was, and that she was kind of hiding how bad it was from me, but she was strong enough to push herself through it, to do the minimal basics. So that's what we did. So once she was brave enough to get on Charlie, and during the process of going on these trail rides, I very consistently kept adding things that were hard. Like we'd get into the edge of a lake where you had to step down off of hard soil into mud, and it was a foot down drop-off thing, and then you're slogging in the mud across 20, 30 feet before you hopped back up the embankment to get back on the trail. And most people that ride horses really wouldn't think much of it. That was the Grand Canyon that she just crossed. And I could see it. That's she says I'm way too observant, but I could see I could see how hard it was. And, every time that she would accomplish something like that, I would say, you can do that much. You now know you can do that much. And we got to a trail called Little Cliff Trail that basically hopped down boulders, which I'd have never taken her down if I had known how bad it was. But we got halfway down it, and we'd been months into training now, and we got to the hard part where you actually do have to hop down boulders one to the next, and it's safe-ish. Fortunately, both horses did great, and she got to the bottom of that. She was still on Charlie at that time, and it worked. I said, turn around, look what you just came down, and it was a very impressive sight to see from having finished it.
Yeah.
And so again, I kept telling her, I said, you can do that much. And along the way, she realized that she could do that much, and she kept pushing herself from that point forward. And, by the time that she really got engaged into the activity of riding Shiloh almost all the time, actually really all the time. Once she started, she never really rode Charlie again. I did. And she bought another horse named Max that I continued to ride with her, that I don't think he's in the book, but from that point on, we continued to do really hard rides, riding, 20 miles or more in practice rides, getting ready for endurance. And by the end of the book, she actually does finish a 50-mile endurance ride. So it was a great journey, but what it came down to is I kept finding things for her to do that weren't normal, that were hard, really hard in some cases, like, crossing a river where she fell in, waist deep with the horse going under, and getting out of it, riding out of it. And I think later on in the riding process, she fell off of her horse in a river. He fell over the top of a boulder in a deep river crossing, started floating down the river, and, grabbed his tail and got her feet down and got up and got back on and finished another 4 hours worth of riding.
Wow.
So it evolved and kept evolving. And, the reason that things that did go wrong didn't bother her anymore is because she was building immense trust in this, nice little horse that she's now a few days away from riding the Tevis Cup on.
Oh, you said it, so I didn't have to, because I've been trying to see if I can play around not saying, because she keeps saying to me, it's the ride that shall not be mentioned. It shall not be mentioned. Yeah. So you already said it.
It's all good.
So I can say
She's
it
on
now.
Final prep.
Yeah. So now Pam went from not being able to even get up the mounting block to she's on her way to Tevis 2024, right? That's all pack and prep and heading out there. And I did tell her, I said, showing up, signing up, showing up, being there, Pam, you already won. I no matter how far down the trail she goes, what an epic adventure to even be brave enough to try. What a story. And I told her there should have to be a part 2 to her book, no matter what.
Yeah, I think that she'll do that. I really do, because the second part's actually as interesting as the first part, and she's been taking notes, religiously, so that, no matter really, you said exactly the truth. It doesn't matter how far she gets on the Tevis Cup. The fact is she chased down a dream that she's sought after for over 20 years, and seemed so out of reach that it was long and forgotten. And, that dream never went away. It just got buried. Buried in fear, buried in time. And when it woke up, she charged into it with the same amount of energy that I would. I mean, just she's completely back to normal, and it really does finish the story. Once she steps onto that ride, she's done. She's better.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is why I really wanted to share her story on here, because life happens, whether it's, when we're younger and we have children and that takes over our life, or maybe our career, or maybe finances aren't there, or maybe the horses that we can, afford to take care of are taking up those 1 or 2 stalls and they can't do it anymore. And then, so I hoped that this episode would give somebody hope and breath back to their dream. Pam is in her 70s, isn't she?
Yeah, she's right at 70.
Right at 70. And she has overcome so much and written a book about it, and she's on her way out west.
The book has some amazing stories in it. I mean, she didn't hide anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made the book so special, is she allowed people to see what fear is, the horror of it, the blinding, nauseating impact of true fear, and wrote so effectively of how piece by piece she followed the journey back out, and is back to normal, and it's amazing. I'm immensely proud of her.
As you should be. Yeah, she has really taken this on, and I'm so happy she reached out to me, because I think her story is going to resonate with a lot of people. I remember when I was in my 30s that I read a book called 10 Feet Tall Still by Julie Sir, and it was right after I learned about distance riding. That book brought me to tears, because I think, especially as women and as caregivers, sometimes everybody else takes up time and we end up putting things on hold. Even if things are on hold right now, I'm thinking of a certain listener who just went through so many things. The loss of her husband. She's raising her children on her own. All these things happen, and I just hope these women keep that fire burning, that your day can still come and you can fight for it just like Pam did. And I'm so happy for her.
Well, a dream is never truly dead until you give up. That was why she succeeded. She never gave up. And, to hear or to read about the moments in time, I think everybody can feel that. I'm a professional trainer. I've felt it. I had a bad accident where a horse ran away with me and compressed me into a wooden fence and compressed my leg and cut my muscle on my leg. And I felt afraid. I understand it. I was fortunate to be so young. I was still stupid, so I came over it much more quickly. But everybody's felt that fear. Everybody knows, the what if this happens scenario. And that's the hardest part of riding, is that you have to accept that your horse is going to stumble, your horse is going to make mistakes, and you have to realize that if you're thinking that you can almost always prevent yourself from getting hurt, but, those mistakes are scary. So, that's where she had a step up in the right direction, is that she was a great horsewoman. She just got it drowned, and she just needed a life preserver.
Yeah. So, Scott, before we go, since I have you on here, I know you've won some championships at third level Western dressage, and I honestly, I've worked with dressage as a passion on my own, not so much with showing, but with lessons. And I swear, I think I'm about ready to try Western dressage just because I can't get an English saddle to fit my horse. So I would be remiss to not just have you talk a little bit about the balance, because you've done both now. You've trained for distance riding, you've done some distance riding, and you've done Western dressage, and you do clinics. How does dressage help a trail horse or a distance horse? And would you encourage riders to go ahead and pick up either traditional dressage or Western?
That's a great question. I'll answer it in just a second, but the first thing I would bring up is how shocked I was to learn how many people were doing dressage. As I was talking in the camp meetings, with people before the ride the next morning, get to know people, you're eating dinner with them, and you get to talking about stuff, and I'm surprised every time about how many people actually do the dressage in the training process of these neat distance horses. So what dressage gives you is mobility. You can change how a horse is doing things in almost infinite ways because they're listening to the classic aids. They're paying attention to leg aids, brain aids, weight changes, using your seat. And so as you're going along on these distant rides, you're basically getting into a rhythm like a jogger does, where you just set a pace, set a speed, and you repetitively go through the speed for hours at a time. And in that process, you don't really want to change the rhythm. That's where the dressage really comes in, because you can yield around a rock instead of having to turn around a rock, which means that your forward momentum isn't impeded. You can change the bend on your horse. So if you see a bend in the trail coming up, you can pre-cue the bend as you're approaching the bend, so the horse knows what your intentions are. So you're building this language with the horse using pressures of your legs, pressures on the reins, weight changes, so you can communicate almost instinctively by the time that you have worked with that horse for a year or two. And it just makes the ride so much more enjoyable, because you're riding with a partner. The education made your horse into a partner. He's actually working at it as hard as you are to offer you both a good ride. And all that basic stuff, dressage just means training. What it is it's using the classic. Because the horse is thinking and he's working with you, they tend to not get as hyper at the beginning of the ride. There's many cues taught in dressage to cue the horse to completely release tension. If you've ever heard the term free walk, in Western dressage, the free jog, that means, lowering into a long and low body position and holding that while you're in the trot or in the gait. So you have all these different tools that you build up, through the levels that allow the horse to be partner versus a packer.
True. Yes, and developing, core muscles and developing the top line and, the cues. All that conversation that happens is only an asset, truthfully.
Yeah. So that you brought up a great point. You're building up the top line. And when you're riding a horse for 50 miles, if they haven't worked in a correct body position, in an athletic position, they didn't actually build the muscles that they need. Right? They evaded building the muscles by being hollow. That's a great point. I wouldn't have even thought to bring that up. Once the horse is round and he pushes his body weight using his rear end, allows the weight to be on his rear end so he can push you both forward, building those muscles up that he needs, to use over that longer distance of time. And likewise, the horse that's actually competing in dressage isn't building proper muscle unless they're, round and on the bit, allowing all those muscles to work in the highest possible function as opposed to just slogging along.
In some way, you could almost say it's like horse yoga.
You know how it gives you body awareness, right? Like when you're doing that stuff, you're actually focusing on a specific muscle, right? You're trying to relax a specific area of your body. That's giving you body awareness. It actually teaches you how to manipulate, soften, relax each section of your body. That's what dressage is doing for the horse. Absolutely.
And, I think it does far more than what we think, because my husband and I had committed to doing this for the rest of the year. And so I think we're on like week 15 or something. And we are going through these motions. And honestly, you kind of think like, well, what is this really doing? Like, well, is this really doing anything? And then we started to realize, I have muscles where I didn't have muscles. Like, we're just,
right.
And I told him, I said, geez, Jim, we both went through the military. We both did some running. How is this? I even went through like a 4-month program in a gym where I paid a trainer and went 3 times a week. And I didn't get all these muscles I'm getting from yoga. And it's so confusing because I'm like, how's this happening? We're just stretching. We're just using dynamic resistance. And I got like all these back muscles I didn't have and leg muscles I never had. I'm like, it's so strange. But I do think it helps as a rider. I think it helps in life. And that's kind of why I brought it up. It's that it's helping ways I didn't plan it to help. And I think that's kind of what dressage does for the horse. Even though a rider could be saying, well, I don't see what haunches in is doing. I don't see what shoulder in is doing. I don't really need my horse to leg yield. But you're really connecting that horse through the body, and you're strengthening parts of the body that just aren't going to get strengthened trotting down the trail. Do you agree?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All those lateral movements are what actually stretches and strengthens very specific muscle groups. Like the leg yield, it stretches the lower legs, and as they do the crossing over movement, they're bringing the leg way up underneath their body and stretching that outside set of muscle groups. The shoulder in loads at the inside back leg and causes the inside back leg to have to push much more of the body weight than it would otherwise. So it allows the horse to draw that leg far under his body into a longer stride. So you see each one of those exercises does something specific. And ironically, Pam and Shiloh worked on dressage for the last, 3-4 months in prep to get ready for the ride that they're about to start, because she wanted to be with his movement as much as possible, to be as fit as possible, and, use that teamwork that's developed through dressage, obviously, to help with the project that she's about to launch upon.
That we're not supposed to say the name of.
Yeah, well, she's there, so it's all good now.
It's out. Pam is at Tevis. Watch for Pam. Watch for the Palomino spotted walking horse, and cheer her on. I know that all things Tevis are really ramping up, and we look forward to it. Are you going to be watching her from home? Are you going to stay up all night and watch on the Facebook group?
Yeah, I'm going to definitely keep my eyes out for how she's doing. I have the person that's running her crew is actually going to be posting text messages on a site that all of us that have helped Pam on her journey that will be eagerly waiting, the news flashes of what she's actually doing, where she's actually at. So, yeah, between the two of them, I ought to be pretty aware of where she's at and how she's doing.
I have extra interest in what Pam's doing, too, because I met her through my Warhorse challenges, which she did several of the 100-mile challenges and longer. So that also always gives me an extra special place in her heart. And the people in that group are going to all be watching her, too, because that's what we do there, is cheer each other on. And I'm quite excited for her. I'm quite proud of her for everything she's accomplished. And everybody should go over to Amazon and buy her book, 3 Steps Up to Mediocrity.
They won't be sorry. It's very entertaining.
Yeah, she did a good job of, there's like a definite line in that book that her whole attitude shifted. And I feel like it mirrored what she did in real life. Like all the struggle, you could feel it. And it kind of was slow going until she had her breakthrough, and then just all the beauty of riding flooded back. And I think she did a great job at making that distinction in the book also. Well, sir, it is a Friday afternoon. I thank you so much for your time. If I'm ever out in your guys' area, I'm going to have to hit you guys up for either a dressage lesson or a ride at Big South Fork.
Oh, I'm pretty sure you can talk both Pam and I into taking you up to Big South Fork. We love to share the beauty.
I envy the views you guys have there. We have no water on our trails unless it rains and gets a puddle. We don't have all these amazing water crossings you guys have there. So I would love to see that.
It's like a fairyland. It's unbelievable. So we'll be there shortly after she gets home, I'm sure.
She's going to have a lot to say. Yep.
Shiloh will probably say, look, that thing I just did? Yeah, I'm resting for a couple weeks. Right, Max.
He's going to take, I think traditionally, they get the whole month off after that.
That's exactly what she told me before she left.
Yeah, he gets a month off. All right, Scott, thank you so much. And let's all be cheering Pam on.
Sounds good. Great talking to you.
Bye.